And in 2015 and 2016, the world saw the largest migration crisis since World War II, which resulted in the million refugees crossing into the EU's borders. I-24's Anna Ehrenheim visited Germany, which most migrants have set their sights on, and spoke to those who still dream of one day returning home.
His eyes are troubled. When you ask him where he is from, he puts his hand to his heart and he tells you Aleppo, Homs, Deir ez-Zor, Damascus, Raqqa. He is one of the over 1 million Syrian refugees in Germany, one of the main destinations for Syrians fleeing their war-torn country.
I walked from Syria to Lebanon, Lebanon to Turkey, then Greece, Macedonia, Serbia, Slovenia, Croatia, and then I arrived here to Berlin.
Qasim's home is now Tempelhof Airport, once known as Hitler's airport. His new surroundings include a male strip club and a casino, a far cry from Deir ez-Zor. He lives in a small cubicle, 12 to 25 square meters inside, along with another 1,300 refugees from Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Iran. Qasim's friend, also a Syrian, fled from Aleppo after living under regime siege for 4 years. In Tempelhof for 6 months, he complains of the treatment refugees receive in Germany, as well as the conditions at the shelter.
Please help the refugees. This is not a life. It's bad food, bad bathrooms, and I'm a human being, not an animal.
The shelter offers 3 meals a day and provides social workers, but many of the refugees, unable to work, wander around the grounds of the large airport or of the city, bored. Many of them venture into the neighborhood of Neukölln. Once heavily Jewish, it is now around 40% Muslim, inhabited mostly by Turks and Palestinians. Some practice their newly adopted language by copying the letters on the posters plastered around the neighborhood. The refugees may all be from different countries with different languages, but they share 2 things: horrific memories that will never fade, and a desire to return home.
And Anna Ehrenheim now joins us in studio. Good evening.
Good evening.
Anna, you spent several days with these refugees. Many of them have told you that they do wish to return to their homeland one day, but what is the most striking thing that you saw or heard while you were with them?
I think the memory that I can't get out of my head was I was in Neukölln on a street which is mostly Palestinian bakeries and shisha bars, and outside one bakery that was actually run by a family from Tulkarm, there was a man who was giving out free shoes to these refugees. And, you know, imagine you're walking all the way from Syria, your shoes are going to, you know, die.
Deteriorate.
Yeah, deteriorate, exactly. And I was speaking to one guy, and many of these refugees I spoke to didn't want to be on camera because they're illegal. And they're afraid that once their faces are seen and their stories are heard, they're going to be sent back to Syria via Turkey, which is what the EU is doing to many of them. And so this guy, he told me that he flew from Damascus to Cairo. Cairo, he walked to Alexandria. Alexandria, he took a smuggler's boat towards Italy, and took him 9 days to do the crossing across the Mediterranean, and then he walked all the way to Berlin. And that was the story that was repeated over and over. You know, there are a number of different migrant routes, but all of these men, and I spoke to just men, to be honest, there were no women around. They told me how they walked, you know, for kilometers to get to safety.
Thousands of miles. Now, in your report, you mentioned that they have to get used to everything in their vicinity, including strip clubs and gambling. Now, a lot of times we talk about assimilating and whether or not that will push people towards becoming more extremist. How much of a culture shock are they in? And is there people who are helping them assimilate to these societies?
There are social workers. There are many volunteers across Germany, across Europe, that are really from the grassroots trying to bring them into the community. I also spoke to various people that were not, you know, first-generation refugees. I spoke to one woman who told me that her father was from Palestine, that she considers herself Palestinian and her children Palestinian, not German. And she says also, just like the Syrians who want to go home, she also wants to go home, and she wants to bring her children home. So what's interesting is everyone is trying to assimilate these individuals, but they don't want to be. They want to go home.
As we heard from a lot of people over the years, Anna Ehrenheim, thank you very much for joining us with these stories from Berlin.